same, new. That's the idea of this video because it's kind of the same stuff, but a bit of new stuff. So let's get into it. So first off, I went to work, which is really cool. I love my work. I'm getting more technical the work I do, which is always awesome. Then after work, I went to the library, which is really cool. And it was actually went to the library. The reason I went to the library was to download games on my Nintendo Switch because to use the Wi-Fi at my apartment, you have to connect to an Xfinity Pass, like it's $10 per two devices. So then I didn't want to pay an extra $10. So I just went to the library nearby me, and then I just downloaded games. Like the Wi-Fi is really good. I think I'm actually go there more. Maybe play like Marvel Rivals and stuff like that. It says it's in the summer. That's kind of it's empty, sadly, I guess. But did that. But the library, what I did more importantly was I started working on the user interface of Quest. Quest is an app where you get quests to do that require you to interact with the environment. And it's kind of like the child, or it inherits the social component, or the purpose of making people be more social from WTM. So with Quest, there's three issues I'm running into. I think the first one I'm slightly overcoming, but the other two I'm still internally debating. So with that in mind, let's get into it. The first one is the user interface. The user interface of Quest is something I've been debating a lot because Quest, the app itself, I think it's a combination of a lot of passions of mine, a lot of interests of mine, from early interest in animes like Fairy Tail or Konosuba, or like D&D, or pixelated games, like Dead Cells, or maybe Escapist, different games like that. And you could obviously think of 100 more. I want to pay tribute to it in this design. I think it would be really cool to have such an app that's like it feels that fantasy vibe. It feels you feel the gamified idea. You feel like you're actually in a world where you have to take on quests, and this makes it more interesting. And then another thing about that, I also feel like the modern user interface is kind of getting like it bores me sometimes. Like I remember when I was designing WTM, I was getting slightly annoyed how much I felt that I had to abide by user interfaces like Instagram, because those have succeeded. So I think on part it's also me just not being innovative, but it's also I want to try and take like a jump from tradition in that sense. But I also know, as much as I want to do all those stuff, that there is people, and there's a good portion of the market for this app that I don't think would be willing to make that shift. It's really like I think it's an app that requires you to even like change your habit, or like use it daily. So having something that's not as seamless into your daily life, like if it's like, imagine if like apps designed like Instagram and all that, and you have like a pixelated app, and it doesn't feel like it doesn't like it doesn't move into your life easily. Like it feels like, oh, this is something I'm still getting used to, or feel new to. I think it could rub off people in the wrong way, and it could get people not to use the app as much because it doesn't feel like something like you just do in your day-to-day life. So what I started to do was I started to play around more. I started to look at like, okay, I still want to pay tribute to those ideas. I think it does play an integral role into the app's identity, but I also want to make it in a way that feels seamless and to integrate into your life, no matter who you are. So I took the elements, I took like the structural designs of parts of these fantasy worlds that that inspired me to make this game. But I didn't keep the color. I took them and kind of made them more modern. In a sense, even though that, like to some people, that may sound really gross, and I get the idea of why it sounds gross. But I think I'm happy with it. I think I like how it still feels fantasy-like in that sense. And it still feels like, oh, okay, I'm still partaking in these old like quests, as if I'm like in the 1600s, I'm in this fantasy world or whatever. But yeah, so that's the user interface. So I think at the end of the video, I'll show like a picture. Even now, it depends on how I feel like when I'm editing this video, but we'll see. The social ecosystem is another thing I'm dealing with. Originally, the app that inspired Quest was WTM, and that was a very social app in its nature because it was an event discovery platform at its core, and events require social elements. With Quest, though, I also want it to be something where it still has that same purpose of connecting people, especially on a college campus. But it does that through means of, okay, maybe two people have similar quests, and they can kind of meet up through that. Like it kind of forces collisions. It's not very forthcoming about that, but it's like that's a kind of something behind the scenes and something like you get an idea of. I think that's how I want the social ecosystem to be. There's also another element like, oh, maybe you could have like if you tap your phones next to each other, then if you tap your phones next to each other, then maybe you can add each other on quests and like you can do more quests together. I think that would be an interesting idea. I don't want to say I'm thinking too far ahead because I don't want to limit that innovation or that ambition or ideation part of this project. But I do think for the MVP, I don't want to worry too much about that, especially because I feel like a social ecosystem is something much harder to build, especially if you delve too deep. I think it runs the risk of becoming another social platform like Instagram and let's say Snapchat or Discord, wherever social platform user runs the risk of becoming a behemoth in that area when it can't. It's not intended to become a behemoth, so it's basically not just a worse version of that behemoth of an app, if that makes sense. So I'm still debating how to take on that social ecosystem. Another thing, Quest, the idea of the creating the quest themselves are meant to be personalized to you. So the idea is to use AI to kind of like, hey, you have a dungeon master or you have this AI bot that you can talk to and say, okay, I'm interested in this. I want to go to more food places. I want to do stuff like that. Then kind of tailors the quest to you. So say you're into food places. Now the quests are more food based. Like, oh, hey, try this ramen noodle or bubble tea at this place, or try create a combination meal between bubble tea and this or that, or try cooking this meal that you've never cooked or whatever, and by getting ingredients from this local store and this local store. That's the idea of the personalization. However, I think I have too many friends who I think so far it's only been two. I have like a very small circle that I talk to about I talk to about projects like this, and they're not the most AI happy people. I think not that that's good or bad, but I think that's part of the reason why I'm considering maybe people, especially because I think this app is going to be used by more young people, and there is a rising trend of a pushback against AI, if you will, generative AI, in regards to like how people use it, and maybe that's something that they're not like the most happy about using. But it's also like I don't think I think I'm focusing on a very small portion or focusing on the wrong portion. I can focus on a large or equally as large portion of the market. So I'm still debating that, but I do think there is a benefit to having a human element to in the creation of the quest. Because if you can have a human who basically like it's kind of like D&D essentially, where you have a friend group, and then the human basically you can have one person running the guild and they can assign quests and stuff like that, and the friend group does them. But I think that's another app entirely. I think this is meant to take someone from who's an individual, like you're a person A who has no friends, none of that, and you can still enjoy it. And that's something I was really that was a reason why I was really happy to move from WTM to Quest, because I think with WTM, the social the event discovery platform, I was really worried. I was concerned in that people wouldn't go to events, right? Like even if they're cool, I think a big reason why people go to events is having friends who are also going to those events. So if you're starting off from person A, it's kind of hard to enjoy the app. There's also other aspects into like third places or just the idea of like I don't want to go to an event or something like that. I talked about all of that in like a previous video. But with this, it feels you can enjoy it with friends or without friends. I think that's something I really like about this app. Um, and that's where my head is at. I think it's cool. Here's the user interface I've been teasing for a while. What I do like about this user interface or the process to make it is that I'm doing WTM. I was really using Figma properly for the first time, right? I touched it before, but I've never really used it like this. I think I got stuck on doing the wireframe, which is like the bare bones of the app, like the skeleton, and it took me much longer. Whereas with this, I just said, okay, I'm just gonna keep on I'm gonna do maybe a wireframe real quick, and then I'm gonna look at it and say, okay, how does this look? Then I create like the high definition or high def, whatever it means, the high def version of the mockup, and I said, okay, I like the colors. Maybe this gives me an idea for that. Okay, if I have this, I need to have another page in relation to that page to do this. So like if I have an account, I need to have an account page obviously, but I also need to have maybe a social discovery page where you can find your friends, so something like that, or find DMs. Um, yeah, so I think that's something I really like this time because I was much faster with it instead of getting stuck in the wireframe phase. I said, okay, let me get feedback on the wireframe and just keep on going like that. It was much faster. I just did whatever like came to my mind. Then I just iterated on that quickly. And it's like that process of building, breaking was much more. I think it served me much more. So I'm really happy about that. But yeah, this is Quest so far. But besides that, I have nothing else to say. So have a great day.